with our studio guests, as I said earlier on, from the organisation Motivate. That's Thea Ozenturk, she's the director, and her two deputy directors are Mylchreest and Lyndsey Smart. And they're here with me in the studio, not just to talk to me, but to talk to you. 66 13 68, please is the number. I see we have one on the line now who's having a fairly long conversation with Catherine, but we'll have to see whether he comes through to us shortly. Before we get into that, there's been a text, just one at the moment, come in, ladies. First of all, I mentioned it to you at the end of the last programme. It was from Simon, who said that he really enjoyed the programme, and he said, well done, ladies. That was from Simon, and then of course we have another one from him very shortly afterwards, which said, I was prescribed opiates, couldn't believe the side effects, wish I never took them, nobody explained the side effects. Well, that actually could be quite an issue, isn't it? If you go to the doctor and they give you a painkiller prescription because something's not right, and you think it's just to get rid of the pain, but you don't know what the implications of it are.
Yeah. I think everybody should take the time. We're busy in life, and if you're not very well, just to check inside the pack and look at the information that you receive, the patient information that you receive, and have a chat with your doctor as well, because these drugs, they are very strong, and we need to be aware of what's in them. So take a little bit of time just to look at the information, just to check that that you're happy with what you're taking, and that's with everything in life, isn't it? Look at the instructions.
Of course, by the time you start to look at that piece of paper inside the box, which would put you off anyway, for all the possible things, the side effects, you want them, don't you? That's why you got them in the first place.
Yeah, I think sometimes people do avoid reading the inside because there's this massive list, and then you convince yourself that you're going to get all of those side effects. But it's an example of it's really important to know what you're taking. Yes, you've been prescribed it, but you can actually research it yourself and speak to your doctor.
Do GPs really have the time? I mean, they know what to prescribe in because obviously they're on their lists of drugs that they can prescribe and must know something about them. But do you think they have the time these days to sit and talk to you and say, now, if you take these, this might happen, and discuss it with you?
I think it's important if you ask the question that they're able to give the time for the answer. But we all know it's difficult with GP appointments. They have a set amount of time. But I would like to think that they would obviously make the time for someone that's anxious, because then that becomes more of a problem as well. If they're anxious about taking it, might not take it properly. So,
in your report about the elderly people somewhere, I noticed that you were referring to having a joint working relationship with the patient, and with their GP. How's that going to work?
That's something that was sort of highlighted when we went throughout and talking to people. The various sort of recommendations that kind of came up. I mean, it might be as simple as us liaising more with GP kind of practices, and if somebody is wanting to cut down on one of their prescriptions, that they're referred to us perhaps in the first instance, or it might be through the nurse at the practice or something. Certainly something we could look into for sure. I know there are an awful lot of people sort of said that they'd be quite surprised how with older people how many medications had been prescribed, but also that they had no idea what they were really for. So I think that there is, particularly with older people, a lack of understanding of, well, I don't really know why I've got this,
or whether they can need to continue taking
absolutely,
them.
Absolutely, yes.
I think the average
Reviews,
person, isn't it? Research, the average person over 60 is taking about 7 different drugs.
Between 2 and 7, yeah.
Right, well, we have a first of our callers on the line now, and it's Howard. Good afternoon to you, Howard.
Hi, Roger. Just a question. It's partly political, but it's to the whole of the panel, and they must have come across this in their day-to-day dealing with the drug addiction. Do they not feel that the benefit system on the Isle of Man and in the UK is a contributory factor to the lack of self-esteem, which then will drag the people down into the various addictions, not necessarily alcohol, cigarettes, drugs or otherwise, but instead of having something to prioritise in their lives, somewhere where they can go and have a job or do something that will make them, in a cliche, proud of themselves, they are then left to more or less just vegetate at home, and they're going onto the drug system or addiction system largely through boredom. Do you not think that the benefit system, in a sense, it's there to support the people, not to give them a living, and this is what a lot of people are doing. They're having a living on the benefit system, and it's not doing anything to help the people that are on it.
Right, well, there's the implied question, what Howard is saying. Thea, is our benefit system, instead of helping, is it causing damage to people and their drink and alcohol and drug problems?
I think what the issue is about recovery and rehabilitation for people, because we've recognised this for a long time at Motivate, that if you have an addictive behaviour and you're stuck, and then you get to the point where you look to change, and then you find that what's there for you beyond that, we're in a small community, there's a lot of stigma, so people sometimes, if they've had an issue with drugs or alcohol, they're very visible, sometimes they're appearing in the newspaper, and it is really difficult to move on from that. And we recognise this. When we did our Pathways to Addiction research a few years ago, we realised that people were stuck, and from that we wanted to do something about it. So we created a group work programme which is funded by the Manx Lottery Trust, and it is a 5-point group programme, 5-point recovery programme that looks to help people find purpose with their day, that they can come along and learn life skills. Because if you have been stuck with an addictive behaviour, you may have lost out, you've lost your confidence, you've lost your ability to perhaps to speak to other people, to be around other people, and this group programme is doing that. For example, on Friday we had somebody from the benefits office who came down to talk to people about how they maybe wanted to get back into work and what they could do, and we've got somebody who's going to be coming along looking at CVs, and then we might do other things that look at how you prevent relapse and how you help people with anxiety, coping with depression. So we've got this really holistic programme now where people are given a purpose and hopefully given the skills to move away from addiction and from those circles that they may have mixed with previously.
How do you react to that, Howard?
Well, it's a very good system in one way, but it has a slight downfall that they're only treating the people that are already in the situation where they have a problem. Where can they, in the future, reduce that possibility of falling into that situation, whereby they're coming? A lot of the people coming through the system are coming from what is commonly termed as broken homes. They used to say, "Where are your children?" Now they're looking and say, "Where are your parents?" And it's got to be something for the next generation. The one that's just gone is being helped by treating. The one that's coming has to be helped by preventing.
Yeah, and actually a lot of the work that we do is looking at prevention, and with that comes education. We have just developed a new service at Motivate called Young Persons at Motivate, it's YP at Motivate, and it brings all of our young person services under one name. And part of that is a really important education programme that we'd like to deliver in the high schools over the island to raise awareness and help young people recognise the signs that potentially their social behaviour may then lead further. So we absolutely agree there that it's really important that we do focus on raising that awareness and looking at how to help people before it becomes an addiction that's causing such negative consequences.
Have you done any of this work in the schools
We
yet?
have. We've done education for many years at Motivate within the Alaman College and with high schools on the island.
What sort of reaction do you get from the students?
I'll be really honest, really good. A lot of what we do is making sure that it's inclusive and it's inventive, it's creative. It's not standing there and giving a lecture. It's involving the students in some interaction, getting their opinions and asking them to share experiences, and it's making them aware of the services as well. So we hope they enjoy it. Certainly the feedback that we get is that they enjoy it, and we enjoy doing it as well, and that makes a difference.
Having done that, how many of these, not particularly the individuals, but how many of these students collectively that you've talked to have actually turned up on your doorstep?
This is the $1 million question we get asked a lot of. Does it work is always a question, and how many people do you prevent from having problems and how many people then come forward. It's really hard to ascertain if, what level have therefore not gone on to have a problem because they've had this awareness. But what we also have in terms of looking at how many people come forward, then that often depends on them saying, I remember that you came into my school and you did X, Y or Z. Because obviously we educate so many young people, it would be impossible for us to recognise each person. So a lot of that relies on them saying it.
We've also got with the criminal justice that we talked about before with the AIRS scheme, so that's the alcohol intervention referral scheme, so that's first time offenders with an alcohol related offence from the age of 18 or over are offered to go on an education evening, and we keep all the stats and everything on that. The police keep that data, and the recidivism rate is incredibly low, so that we've shown that does work.
Howard, that's a little bit more to your question, really. How do you react to that bit?
Well, all I can hope is that they're successful in their end structure, but it's going to be a long and hard uphill struggle because the people that's on the outside pushing these addictions, the drugs, etc., have a hell of a sight more power than any government will ever have. So good luck to you, more power to your elbow.
Oh, thank you.
Howard,
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you for joining us. That was Howard. Howard Quayle, but not Howard Quayle, Chief Minister. Right, there we are now. Albert, he's come on and he said, I appreciate that your studio guests will have seen matters from a particular angle, but could I ask, what are their general thoughts on the legalisation of cannabis? Now, this, of course, has been a debate that's been going on for a very long time, including on this programme, I might add, more than once. I mean, do you see any really negative effects of cannabis?
Yes.
Yeah, we do. It's such a difficult question to answer. It really, really is. But obviously, one of the things that we will see is the psychological impact of heavy and persistent cannabis use. There is research into what cannabis does to the developing brain, and I think a lot of the focus goes on that, particularly when young people are starting to misuse cannabis. And it's important to recognise we're not talking about somebody that's smoking a spliff with their friends on a Friday. This is persistent and heavy use that can actually cause significant impact onto somebody's mental health. So it's, again, we're looking at the individual impact on them, but it's probably a topic for another day that is going to probably take the whole time.
Well, okay, but what happens, for instance, that's obviously a no at the moment, isn't it, by the way you put that? What do you think about people taking cannabis or cannabis medicine, if you like, tied in with the need for something?
Yeah, that's very different.
Yeah,
there's two different
Sativex.
types. Yeah, there's CBD and there's THC when it comes in cannabis. So the THC part of cannabis is the part that makes you high and that can cause hallucinations, whereas the CBD properties are the medicinal side. And people have extracted the CBD from the cannabis to turn it into medicinal cannabis. And they don't even call it medicinal cannabis quite often. It's just medicinal CBD oil. So it's a huge derivative from what we're seeing that comes onto the island, that quite often young people and anyone that smokes cannabis does not know what's actually in there.
I was going to say, when you see people who are smoking cannabis, I presume there's different qualities and different types of it as well.
Absolutely. It's much stronger today, which is probably why it causes more mental health issues and amotivational syndrome, whereby people kind of lose their raison d'etre to get up, and cannabis becomes their everyday everything, really. So it is much stronger today. But medicinal cannabis, the two of the most harmful drugs in society are legal. So
alcohol and cigarettes.
Yes. So you've got to look at it like that. You've got to look at that if there are health benefits, and some research is saying that there is health benefits for certain individuals with certain conditions, then it's something we definitely need to look at. Right.
So Albert, thank you for your email as it is. I don't know if that answers your question, because did you contribute to that at all, Kay, or was anything like that?
No, I was just thinking actually, because when we did the older person study, there are some surveys and studies out there that are looking at the impact on the ageing brain as well. Not conclusive as of yet, but there may be sort of changes with the kind of like the neurotransmitters as we age. So cannabis having an impact on that, and also a general feeling out there that because cannabis use is somewhat normalised in society now, that we're more likely to see older and more mature people carrying on with the cannabis use, and who knows what that sort of might bring sort of long term.
But you're saying there's a long-term effect. It's not just the effect of whilst they've taken it and then it wears off.
No, absolutely. I mean, sort of the amotivational syndrome and those sort of side effects as well for people.
Okay, well, thank you. There we are, Albert. That's the answer to your question, I hope. Now, this was sent in. Chris called in, talked to Catherine, and he said, how can the guests know what they're talking about if they haven't been there themselves? I was born on the Isle of Man and find it disgusting that we have to pay £1 million to Manx Radio to keep it going. Thank you very much, Chris. Right, that's
Who's to say we haven't?
Yeah, right. Right, well, let's answer the first part of the question. The second part is comment. Well, I mean, there is a point, though, isn't it? You wouldn't expect you to go drug taking to find out what it's like.
No.
But how can you relate when you're trying to help somebody? How can you know what they feel?
I think what's really important here is that we look that there's various different ways in terms of helping somebody. You can help somebody from understanding where they've been because you've been there, and you can help somebody from helping them because you've not been there. So you wouldn't necessarily expect the doctor to have had all of the ailments that you go with him to be able to help direct how to support you. And this is the same. And we also offer a wide range of counsellors within our service. So if someone has specific needs, we can try and make sure that we have the right person matched with that client. So I think it's important that we have that and that we have a choice for people. Right,
now, coming back to your original part in your earlier programme, you were talking about when people come to you. Well, before we get to the end of this programme, you better tell us where you are as well, in case anybody who's listening to this.
Do you know, Roger, I'd rather that we didn't do that. And I tell you why. Because we like to remain low-key. We like to remain anonymous.
Well, how does anybody know where to go?
We've got contact details. People can phone us on 627 656. People can text us, people can email us, but we're not essentially like a drop-in service, if you like. We offer appointments, and people arrange those appointments with us, and we can see people within 2 working days of first contact, so we're very accessible. But we do like to keep people's anonymity. With confidentiality is so important. So we are right in the heart of Douglas, right in the hub of all the activity, but we're kind of not overlooked. So we picked those premises for a very particular reason.
I didn't actually say that. I said, how do they contact you?
The telephone number is 627 656, or you can email us on motivate@iom.com.
Okay, and there's a separate line, if I remember, for young people, isn't there?
We do have separate lines, but it's easier to keep that one line in your mindset. So it's 627 656.
Okay, well, we'll come back to that before the end of the programme then. Well, then go back to this initial thing where you said it's confidential and people come to see you.
Yeah.
They must, when they come through the door, wonder what's going to happen. It must be also very strange territory for them. What can they expect from counselling?
It is. I mean, that's why if somebody rings up, that I'll ask if they've been before, if they've had any experience of counselling and support before, and go through it with them, because, for somebody to have the courage to pick up the phone and ask for help, it's a very brave thing to do. So it's trying to make them as comfortable as possible before they even turn up at the door, and what to expect from people. And I usually sort of say to people that counselling is not about us telling you what to do. It's absolutely about listening to you, and hopefully with the support and some hints and tips along the way about that person coming to any conclusions that they want to about their alcohol, drug use or gambling.
Confidential?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. And we ask people to sign up to a confidentiality agreement and statement when that's the very first thing that we do when they come in.
Now, what happens if you're concerned about someone else's drinking or gambling, whatever, not necessarily a family member? How do you go about that?
They can absolutely come in for support in their own right. That's an awful lot of what we do at the service. So it can be a family member, a partner, but equally it can be an employer, it can be a friend. So we would encourage anybody who's got concerns that they can ring in or come in for support in their own right.
It's just a one-off visit. How often can they be seen?
That's how long is a piece of string, I'm afraid. So for everybody that's entirely different. So for some people it might be that they just want to check out where their drinking's at, so it might be a one-off, or they're not sure about our service, or it might be that that their addictive behaviour has been such for such a long time that they need some ongoing support. So it's
And how many of you are there in this? Is there 3 of you, or are there more?
Oh
no.
There's about 13 of us now in total. We have a consultant clinical psychologist who works with us and offers support for the most difficult cases where people are really struggling, he offers support for those. We've got a range of specialists who are all qualified in addiction, are registered and accredited with the Federation of Drug and Alcohol Professionals. Very skilled team available there, and we try to match clients up
Are they
with
full
the
time,
best.
are they?
Full and part-time.
Yeah.
So quite a big team now. I mean, it's gone from the days when we were very small, above a shop in town, a couple of counsellors. We've expanded significantly.
Right. Now, this is another text or email come in from Anne, and she says that doctors are too short on time due to the ill health of the nation, not being educated on their own health matters to do the reviews. Not their fault. I blame the education system for crowd control conditioning and not educating the masses. Now, what she really means by that is that it is a bit about looking after your own interests, looking after yourself, which the health minister's been on about quite a bit at the moment. But she's actually suggesting here that somewhere along the line they've missed out. They haven't been taught how to do these things for themselves.
The individuals themselves. Well, I mean, I agree that we're in an era now where everybody is stretched, everything is busy, and that people do need to think about taking responsibility for their own health and well-being and making good choices for them that are going to be beneficial for them and for their families. I appreciate people can get stuck in an addictive behaviour, but we believe that it's a choice that you can. It's not you're not powerless over a substance or a behaviour, that you are powerful and that you can make a decision to change.
That ties in with a quote I found from a chap called Philip Dick. He said, "Drug misuse is not a disease, it's a decision, like the decision to step out in front of a moving car. You'd call that not a disease, but an error of judgment."
Yeah, that's good.
Right, it's an interesting one there, but talking about drink, for quotes, Ernest Hemingway said, "Always do sober what you said you'd do drunk. That'll teach you to keep your mouth shut."
That's good.
Right. Now, what else have we got now? Ask the ladies to check out neurogenesis cannabis. It's been studied in Japan and has been found to give birth to new brain cells, and they say it's beneficial to dementia sufferers. So that's a different form of. Have you heard of that?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Right. No, you haven't heard of
No, I
that.
haven't
No,
heard of
no,
that,
I
but we'll be
haven't
looking
at
it up.
Thea's writing it down as we speak.
Right, now we've just nothing to do at all with what we're talking about at the moment, but Peter Kelly has contacted us, and he does this on Sundays in the summer very regularly. He's asked us to tell our listeners that the Camera Obscura is open until 4 o'clock. That's just outside in front of the station.
Take a
here.
trip up there after.
Yeah.
Peter Kelly is there today with Angela Atkinson to greet the visitors, and that was actually from his wife Ruth. So Camera Obscura is open today. Probably quite good pictures. It's quite a bright day out there, just at the moment. Right, now Albert has come back again, talking about legalisation of cannabis. He says, "Thank your guests for their comments. By its nature, the question regarding the legalisation of cannabis is a rhetorical one. I hope the matter is put to a committee of Tynwald someday, and that the opinions of your guests will be taken into consideration, if only by way of a balance."
Oh, it's nice to hear.
nice to hear.
Yeah.
Right. Now, while we're waiting for 1 or 2 more contributors, coming back to this alcohol and substance misuse in older people, you've got a very detailed report there, because effectively 2 reports. One's a shorter version than the
That's
other,
right, yeah.
and one's a very long document.
It is. It grew, unfortunately.
How many of you worked on that?
It was essentially Thea and I, with our psychologist, who put a special report in about Korsakoff's, which is a particular type of alcohol-related dementia. But essentially, it was Thea and I.
Yeah. How long did it take you to do?
Too long. I think almost 18 months around that sort of time scale. Like I say, what happened was it sort of started out as a scoping study, but as we kind of started unpicking and unravelling and looking at things more, it kind of grew into a much sort of bigger document than I suppose we'd anticipated. But
Okay, what are you going to do with it?
well, we never wanted it to be a standalone document, so there are almost 20 recommendations that came out of the study. So the plan is to put together a working party to start looking at some of those recommendations and going through it. And we've already earmarked and had several initial conversations with some people that we'd like to take part in
a working party within your organisation or bringing outsiders?
Oh, bringing outsiders in, definitely, yes, from hopefully ranging from sort of public health to kind of third sector representatives and other people, yeah.
We'll come to that again after the break. Welcome back to the Mannin Line. With me are our three guests from Motivate. And now we've got another caller on the line, and it's Tommy. So good afternoon to you, Tommy.
Hi, Roger. First of all, Roger, I'm full of admiration for all your guests. I feel totally inadequate against them, all the great work they do, Roger.
Thank you very much, Tommy.
I'm sure they're pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
And to admonish Chris, saying he's a regular contributor to Chris, to Stuart. And what a stupid thing to say. You know, you've got to have something before you can judge on it. You know, I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. Black marks to you, Chris, if you're still listening. Now, my thing goes back quite a few years. I used to suffer from migraines, ladies, and I was prescribed a medication for it called Mylchreest. But I found to my cost in the end, it was the Mylchreest that was causing the migraines, because it had this constituent in it, and it was addictive.
Right.
I can't remember who once said it, Tommy, that there were two causes to recovery. One, you recovered from the illness, and then you recovered from the effects of the medication.
Well, it was, Roger, because, I mean, what it was in the end, I was looking forward to taking the Mylchreest, really. I couldn't wait to take a Mylchreest. And then I suddenly realised that, I'm addicted to these Mylchreest. These are giving me a migraine, worrying about when I'm going to take the next one. And in the end, they were banned in the end, Roger. You can't get them now.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Because they were taking off the prescription medications, and I was awful glad of that, because now I'm migraine free now. I just walk around, and I'm out down Summerhill Glen now with me black Labrador, Ori.
Oh, wow.
And it's fantastic.
I'm glad to hear that you're free of it.
So as I said, ladies, just keep up the good work, because what you're doing is amazing. You know, to help people.
Tommy, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tommy.
Thank you again. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, cheers, ladies. Bye, Roger.
Bye-bye. That was Tommy, yes. We've got another caller coming in, I think, or we thought we had, in a moment or two, but I noticed that you've got a 5-point group work recovery programme cropping up shortly, where it seems to me from 17th of May onwards, which it's into July, which seems to have a whole catalogue of things. Is this for the public or this is for professionals?
No, this is for people who are in recovery, or attempting to be in recovery from any addictive behaviour. This is our programme I was talking about, funded by the Manx Lottery Trust. And it's 4 days a week. We're also doing SMART recovery meetings as well, which is SMART stands for self-management and recovery training, and that's a group that's run by people who are in recovery themselves, so it's peer-led. It's a science-based CBT programme, which again looks at people making the right choices.
Coping with depression, effects of substance misuse, bereavement has come into this
That's
too.
right, yeah.
Another substance, sleep management.
Yes.
Rehabilitation of offenders, mindfulness and relaxation, employment advice, and meditation.
Meditation,
You
yes.
teach that as well, do you?
Well, we have somebody that works with us who's putting all together the group work programmes in conjunction with both Kay and myself, and so far we've already ran the first quarter. It's just about to come to an end. It's been hugely successful. People have wanted this, and we've listened, and it's working. And it's what it's doing is it's helping individuals build up what we call recovery capital. It's giving them the skills. It's helping them recover. It's giving them opportunities, and hopefully they will go forward now after they come through the programme, and that will help them to move away from their addiction and to go on and live a balanced life.
Right, some more comments come in here. Let me just find them in a moment if I can while we're talking. There we are. Here it is. Chris called again. If it's an illness, should people be punished for an alcohol-related offence, or should they be helped? And that's another very different issue, isn't it?
of course people should be helped.
Yeah, but punished for an alcohol offence, because there's obviously quite a lot of people up in Derby because of alcohol issues.
But then again, that can often be, for some people, that can be the motivator, that then they move into a period of change.
Catalyst, isn't it?
Yeah,
often?
catalyst, yeah.
Now, just moving on to a different subject for a moment, we talked about lots of different addictions, and I've covered numerous addictions, from everything from, from playing computer games to all sorts of different bits and pieces. But one that I think probably will stick out in our society more than so many of the others at the moment now is the addiction to social media.
Yes.
The addiction to people around always on their mobile phone all the time, can't give it up. Does that fall into your responsibilities?
Yeah, as part of our young person service, we are looking at gaming, and social media is involved in gaming. 27% of young people, this is from the Big Youth Survey, the Isle of Man, data from that, 27% of young people spend more than 3 hours a day on social media. Now, social media does provide a platform for gaming, and gaming does provide a lot of risks for young people. Cyberbullying, there's sexual exploitation, and a lot of people have actually reported cyberbullying. 20% of young people have been cyberbullied. So going into gaming isn't just about focusing on the addiction to gaming. It's, again, like with all the addictions that we cover, looking at the impact of that and what it actually opens young people up to experiencing as well.
But the social media companies structured their services in such a way that it makes them addictive.
I think social media nowadays is what we rely on quite often to look. Certainly if I'm looking for information on a service, I look at Facebook more than anything else. So we are in a world now where social media is heavily relied upon, but there's also many benefits to it as well. It's like with anything, we're looking at proportion here. We're looking at making sure that things are done in moderation.
Well, I'm reading a note here from another document that said if you're a social media addict, your addiction is getting worse. There's a reason for that. Most of the major social network companies, as well as social content creators, are working hard every day to make their network so addictive that you can't resist them. So that's an interesting thought there, that keep looking, or even if you're looking at what other people are saying about you.
It's a multi-million-dollar industry, isn't it? And I think they do have psychologists that understand how the brain works involved in the creation of these sites.
What about other addictions such as shopping? Do things like this come under your list? There's a whole catalogue of them, isn't there? Shopping, internet, solvents, sex, exercise. There's all sorts of things.
Well, we've met people with every type of addictive behaviour. They may come to us with an alcohol issue, but you also discover that they've also got a shopping addiction as well. And so, that's why the skills in working with addictive behaviour are so transferable.
Yes.
That we can cross over into other addictive behaviours, not just the core key ones that we support at Motivate.
And you can do it. You don't have a restrictive remit.
Unfortunately, people don't come to us with restrictions. They come to us.
No, I mean, you can't say to somebody, I'm sorry,
No.
if you've got a sex addiction, I can't do anything about that.
Well, Motivate it's always been a can-do agency, and if somebody presents to us and they've multiple co-occurring conditions, we tend to get stuck in and help. That's the type of ethos that's always been underlied the delivery.
And if we
of
can't,
the
we'll
service.
try and point them in the
find
right
some
direction
direction.
of help
Yeah.
through, whether that be through mental health or other services.
Yes, because this exercise addiction, of course, has been with us a very long time, hasn't it? People are always going to the gym or go whatever they do at home, get their highs that way.
That's right.
Although apparently it in the long run, it can cause as much damage as it can fitness at the time.
Again, that's with any addiction. If it's there as an imbalance in your life, it becomes the number one priority over anything else, then that would suggest that there's an issue there.
Now, I think we'd better go back to where we came in earlier for a moment, because people listening to this today might say, well, I would like to contact these people. And so let's go back again on how they can do that.
Okay. You can telephone us on 627 656. There is somebody there to answer the phone every day between the hours of 9 and 5. We run evening appointments for people as well, so there are 2 evenings a week where people can be seen after hours, so it's not restrictive to daytime hours. You can also email us at motivate@iom.com.
And will they get through when they do this to either just a telephonist or somebody who actually can understand what it is?
We have a reception, a person who answers the phone, but then you get put through to one of the counsellors. We run a duty system, a duty line. So yeah, there is a helpline there. There are people that we never meet that we just speak to over the telephone.
Right, well that brings us right to the end of both our programmes today, ladies, and thank you for joining us and discussing your
Roger.
work and some of the issues that are surrounding it. I hope that for people listening that has been helpful, and indeed for you. Let's see if we get to some response to this, shall we? The director of Motivate, the addiction service, is Thea Ozenturk, and her two deputy directors are Mylchreest and Lyndsey Smart. On the telephone switchboard today was Catherine Nichol, and I'm Roger Watterson, and Catherine and I will be back next week. Until then, goodbye.